Good afternoon, Australia, and good evening, America. You're back on Radio Toni, and you're listening to the Everyday Business Show. And today I have a fabulous guest for you. But before we get on to that, just a reminder that Peo is listening in from the Philippines, ready to answer your questions, take your comments, and send you any of the links. If you want to find out more about the gorgeous Sharmin, please jump onto radiotoni.com and look under my guest for this week, and you will find your links to Sharmin and everything, every way you can connect and chat to her as well. A big thank you to all our listeners. This is our last show before Easter break, and I'm excited because I'm going to have 4 days off. Now, today's guest is author Sharmin Smith. She's a survivor, author, mum, citizen, and proud advocate and for human rights and fighting for the unheard. So you can understand very clearly while Sharmin and I connected. We had a wonderful conversation the first time we met, and Sharmin's mission is to share her wisdom gained through her unique experiences. Shining the light in the darkness that exists in some society is her calling. She's an abortion survivor and is raised by a mother who did not want her. She shares her story to help other people who have dealt with family trauma to get through their pain. When she reached adulthood, she became a financial services expert. Sharmin has met many teams of people in the industry and is sought after for her experience in the financial industry. Due to childhood trauma, Sharmin was diagnosed with PTSD. Eventually leaving the financial industry, Sharmin took up writing as a form of therapy, and in early 2015 published the book Taming the Dita, about a reality TV show called Who Wants to Be President. In this story, a childhood trauma survivor runs for president against Hillary Clinton and runs on an anti-pedophile platform. Sharmin highlights serious changes that need to happen in our system, intending to make her readers think outside the box. What started as one book has turned into 3, and Sharmin will continue her series of books, and we're going to talk to her about that in the show. Hello, Sharmin. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so excited to have you on the show today. There are lots of synergies between our shared stories, and I'm really very grateful you've taken the time to be on the show today. Um, we're going to tackle some of the difficult things early in the interview, and I just wanted to touch on your growing up and what it was about life that was so difficult for you.
As a child, I'm not even really sure that I realized how difficult it was. It was just the way things were.
It was.
I remember my first day of kindergarten, and I was so excited to go to school. I couldn't wait to go to school. I got up, I took myself to school. I walked there by myself. I got there, I got into the class. I had no idea where I was supposed to be. I was early. There was a split day. I wasn't supposed to be there until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I walked myself back home. I was 4 years old. It was just perfectly normal to me. I didn't think anything of it, but it is obvious to me as an adult, and I look back
Yes.
on the situations, it is easy to see that I came from the worst of the worst environments.
Pretty tough entry at 4 years old, isn't it? And you're right, Sharmin. It's not until you're an adult and started to experience life as an adult that you can look back reflectively and see some of the things that just weren't quite right when you were a child. Did it take until adulthood for you to realize that, Sharmin?
Absolutely, and a lot of therapy to get through it. I'm
Yeah.
incredibly fortunate that I had access to quality therapy and I was able to get treatment and identify triggers, work through disassociated memories. It was.
Yes.
I'm pretty fortunate that I have had as much
Yeah.
treatment as I have had, and it's one of the reasons why I advocate for it for everybody. As somebody who has PTSD, and has gotten treatment
Mhm.
for it, I can look around in my
Mhm.
society and see, especially in the United States, a country full of
Yes.
people who are suffering from traumatic issues, traumatic events that have happened to them and in our society as a whole. And there's no access to treatment for most of the people. And most
Yeah.
people don't realize that unmanaged depression manifests as rage. And we're
Yes.
real quick to laugh and joke about our anger management issues, but nobody wants to talk about our mental health issues or how we address them. And the reality is that they're the same thing, and it's time to have that conversation.
Absolutely. I too have benefited from extensive amounts of therapy. I didn't allow myself that therapy until I was in my 40s, indeed. But it does make such a difference, Charmin. If we could have therapy available for our children before they get to teenage, there's so many things that we would head off in terms of protecting them from what life might throw at them, or the way that they react to the world. And it's about that understanding that your brain's in trauma, and its sole purpose is to protect you. And even if you're relatively safe, it will still try and protect you. That's PTSD in real terms. Your brain is fighting to survive, and it's fighting to keep you safe, even when you're not really in need of keeping safe. It's still doing its job.
Mhm.
And that therapy in understanding those things makes a huge amount of difference. I know it did for me, and I can hear that you're saying the same thing. Shaman, I wanted to talk, and if you're comfortable with this, about the mother wound. And there's been a bit of research and quite a number of really good books written around mother wounds. Now, this is not wanting to bash our mothers.
Right.
This is not about uh, attributing blame. This is just about the healing once you recognize that there's a wound there deep in your soul from your mother in particular. Was
Mhm.
that the same for you, Shaman?
Absolutely, absolutely. I and, and I'm fortunate because my both of my parents are deceased. My mother has been deceased for 21 years now. Actually, March the
Yeah.
21st was her 21-year anniversary of passing away, and I
Oh.
have felt her presence from the other side so many times, especially in the last
Mm-hmm.
years. And I like to think that as complicated as our relationship was when she was here, it is
In
better
the
now.
human experience?
Mhm. Yep,
Yes. Yes.
and I like to think that she has a different perspective of her behavior on the other side as well too. Um,
Mm.
as moms, we tend to make jokes about our kids, and children don't understand sarcasm. So, as an
No.
adult, I can look back on some of the things that she said as a kid that really wounded me. There was always something wrong with me.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
maybe she was just joking. Maybe it wasn't. There were so many things that were all connected together, and she was part of the
Yeah.
silent generation before the baby boomers. There's a lot coming out about
Mm.
them, about um,
Yes.
how they
Yes.
were raised in such an abusive, traumatic environment, and certainly
Correct.
we should be giving some consideration to our baby boomers because therapy was not something that was valued or respected as they were growing up.
No.
And I have met many grown adults in that generation who are just now starting to embrace the concept that maybe they have wounds and traumas that they need to work on. And
Yes.
I encourage them because it is a wonderful thing. And we should all be working on trying to understand our wounds, the things that hurt us, our childhood traumas, our
Mhm.
experiences. They
Yeah,
all impact us and shape us whether we realize it or not.
absolutely. And the fact that once you have the courage to start talking about those things, as difficult and as painful as they are, that's when the healing starts to take place. That's when the
It
understanding and the consciousness of your own behaviors. So this is not about attributing blame. It's
right.
about realizing what the way that your brain thinks, the way that your brain reacts. Why are you angry when that car cuts in front of you? why are you angry when that man speaks to you that way? You're
Mhm,
being triggered by something that is unhealed. And once you
mhm,
start working on those things, life gets better. You cease
mm,
to be that angry person. You cease to react when that car falls in front of you. And I know from, and what you say about depression and anger being so
mhm.
related, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely, they're related. There's a when you don't recognize that depression is part of your life, it builds into anger because you feel unheard, unseen, and trying to work through those horrible emotions. That doesn't happen until you seek that therapy. Shaman,
And
what age?
even
Sorry,
after you seek
you,
the therapy, you may still have an angry response, but it won't
yes.
last as long, right? One of the things that is so important about the unmanaged depression and the unmanaged anger
Hmm.
and rage, it is a seething rage that stays with you for a very
Yes,
long period of time. Once
yes,
you identify it and you learn to treat it, maybe you're angry, maybe you get mad when somebody cuts you off, but it doesn't ruin your whole
yeah,
day. And that's
yes,
important, and you learn to identify this issue within yourself so that
yeah,
you don't continue to take it out on other people, which is really
yes,
important to your healing because you don't want to hurt other people just because you're angry and
yeah,
upset.
yeah. Shaman, if you look at some of the violent acts that have happened across America in the last little while, I, for me, I always think, oh my goodness, what trauma lies behind that? Like for me now, when I look at various elements of traumatic stuff that happens in the news, for example, I always think that there's something behind that. What's left untreated? What hasn't been talked about? What's been hidden? That act of violence is the end result of something that's not been talked about, treated, or managed. Do you think that's true?
I do think it's true, and I think that goes back to that unmanaged depression manifesting as anger and rage, and it, you know, whenever we hear about one of these violent acts, it's usually somebody who's um, quiet and reserved and people consider to be
Yes,
polite, and most people do a pretty good job of keeping control of themselves,
they
right?
do.
But it can be something simple that triggers you. I mean, I would think that it must be something that builds inside of you. I don't
I
have any
agree.
fears of me doing anything to hurt anyone else, right? I
Yeah.
go out of my way not to hurt other people. It is
Yes.
something that's really important to me. And I think it's something that mental health gets a bad rap for.
Yeah.
95% people with diagnosed mental health issues are nonviolent. They are,
Yeah.
maybe they get angry, but they're not going to hurt you. There is something else
Yes.
that is going on there that we don't necessarily understand. And it needs to be researched by qualified professionals who
Absolutely.
aren't going to immediately just jump on the excuse bandwagon, because I see a lot of
Mm.
excuses being made for
Yes.
people who have violent episodes. They hurt people, they kill people, they do countless amounts of
Horrible
damage
things.
to
Mm.
it's awful. And there has to be a way to identify it. Social media has come in incredibly helpful. Facebook, people making angry posts, and smart people
Yes.
reporting, if you hear something, if you see something, you should say something. um, it's not 100%, and we know our
No.
friends well enough that we think they can just talk and be angry, and it's not really gonna go anywhere, they don't really mean anything. But
Yeah.
it's time for us to start talking about and really thinking about the words people are saying. If you're really angry, it's time for us to talk about that, and we need to find a
Yes.
healthy way to express it. And there's so much division in the United States right now. It's this side against that
Mm.
side, and we are not doing a very good job of communicating with people and with each other, and what our angers and frustrations are, and when somebody does express what they're upset about, The other side doesn't hear it. And that is
Yeah.
creating a real problem. We have to find a way to get through this dynamic, however it is
Yeah.
possible. Laughter, whenever is possible, as long as you can
Yes.
find a way to do it appropriately without insulting or humiliating other people. I think laughter is going to be a
Yeah.
key. Laughter and food. Food,
Definitely food.
food, feed me, feed me.
Exactly right. Sharman, uh, before we get into the next question, I just wondered, how old were you when you first started going to therapy? Can you remember?
Oh, the first time I went to therapy was in my 20s.
Yes.
But I really started therapy in July of 2007, so I was in my 30s.
Yeah. 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 So it is often, that's what I mean when I said before, if we had some of those modalities available to younger people that they don't get into early adulthood and later adulthood before we start dealing with those traumas. It's about recognizing this kid could have issues later on in life. Let's talk about it and try and sort it now versus later on, isn't it? And that's the conversation that we don't ever seem to get to, is it?
It really isn't. And if we could stop creating the traumas in children.
Yes.
So, a wonderful quote, and I want to say it's Frederick Douglass, but I might be wrong, and I'll regret this horribly. Um,
All right.
but it is easier to build up healthy children than it is to repair broken men, right? If we do a better job
Absolutely.
raising our children to learn to express themselves properly, if we don't resort to spanking as the first form of of punishment,
Yes.
or retraining, right? You do a better job
Mm.
with children if you distract them rather than punish them, because they have
Yes.
such short attention spans anyways.
Yes.
When you realize that you are spanking the child because of your anger and you're not actually teaching the
Yes.
child anything. Spanking is such a difficult conversation to have with parents, because
Oh, isn't it?
so many parents were effectively spanked, just swatted just a couple of times, and it wasn't a problem. But so
Yes.
many parents take their anger and frustration out on that child, and they don't realize how
Yes.
strong they are, and they don't realize the impact that that has on that child. It teaches the child
Yes.
violence. If you're
Yes.
screaming in your house all the time, your kid is screaming too. I have seen so many wonderful examples of parents who have done such a good job teaching their children, and I wish those people could, teach everybody how to do it.
Yes.
But
Teach the world. Yes.
right, but we have to find a way to normalize different types of punishment for kids. I didn't
Yes.
personally find even time out to be successful with my son. He
I agree.
was very moody. He was very
Yeah.
emotional. There was a lot of things going on. He got a different type of punishment from my spouse than my daughter did, and I could see the difference in their
Yes.
behaviors. The idea that you could spank a boy but can't spank a girl wasn't something that worked for me. I I I
Yeah.
I couldn't make that connection that it was okay to hit a boy, but not okay to hit a girl. Let's just not hit
Yeah.
either one of them. And I found that he
Yes.
responded better to a time in. So when he was melting
Uh-huh.
down and he was losing it, I would sit down and put him in my lap and hold him for 5 minutes. And that was something that
Ah, yes.
worked for him. It's therapy for the kids was also beneficial to find different techniques to help them manage their anger and their frustration too. Throwing
Yeah.
a balloon at a wall is the best thing an angry child can do. You can throw a balloon at a wall as much as you want. It's not going to hurt
Ah,
anything.
yeah. Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? Oh no, Sharman, we've lost your audio, my lovely. I'm going to keep talking while
How
we
to,
try and get Sharman. Oh,
uh,
there we go, back again. Yay.
I'm wired in, I promise.
I know. I think it's the internet myself, but anyway. Sharman, I wanted to I wanted to talk just briefly. When you reached adulthood, you went into the finance industry. What was it that sparked your interest in finance versus anything else that you could have done?
I don't think there was anything else that I could have done. My mother was the cheapest broad that ever walked the face of the earth. I'm absolutely sure I saw her pinch a penny into a copper wire. I have never seen anybody tighter in all of my life. But she was brilliant with the way
Yes.
she did it. She always had 3 or 4 jobs. There was always money coming in the house. She was a waitress. There was cash. Everybody in our family came to her to borrow money whenever they had trouble. And she would sit them
Ah,
down and she would go over their budget with them. She would ask them how much their paycheck was. She would ask them
oh,
what their bills were. She could figure out how much they could pay her back. She charged them interest.
yes.
I was
Yeah.
raised to be a mortgage underwriter from a very young age. So when I started looking for work,
There was nothing else.
I
Mm.
automatically gravitated towards business environments. I knew because my mother was a waitress or worked in a factory. I knew I wanted to
Mm,
work in an office where it was air conditioned in the
yes.
summer and heated in the winter, and everything grew from there. I was
Yeah.
fortunate to get into jobs where
Yeah.
my common sense was appreciated, my critical thinking
Yeah.
skills were valued, and
Yeah.
I was promoted within 90 days of almost every job I had. And I have a very short learning curve. So at least by the end of 90
Yes.
days, I was fixing systems, I was helping them streamline things, and they were trying to figure out where they were going to put me next.
Yeah. Fantastic. So from the finance industry, can you tell the audience about how the first book come about? Because
Well,
it's a
from the finance
big,
industry, right,
yeah.
it's a jump, right? I
Yes.
Right. I have had a reputation for many, many years for knowing things I couldn't possibly know. I would
Yes.
be in a meeting and I would say things that would trigger the executives in the room, and they would pull me aside and ask me how I knew what I knew.
Yeah.
I didn't know, well, how I knew
Women's
what I knew.
intuition.
Right, right.
Women's intuition.
I leaned on that. I, at
Mm.
one point in time, got moved into writing policies and procedures while I was at Deutsche Bank. And I
Oh,
really
yes.
was not a fan of writing policies and procedures because I could write for hours and hours about one topic. And it was,
Yeah.
great to absolutely understand it, but it was boring information. And at some point in time through my process of therapy and trying to uh, rewrite the story of my pain, I tried to turn my pain
Yes.
into
Yes.
purpose. And the book idea actually came
Yes.
about as a form of a joke. In
Yeah.
2012, after Obama won the second election, I
Mhm.
I I was absolutely sure Hillary Clinton was gonna take 2016, and the only way the Republicans had any chance, because their bench was shallow and they had nothing to throw up against her, the only way they were gonna have a
Yeah.
chance was to start a reality TV show and find a candidate of the people, and it's what
Yeah.
started as a joke turned into a book, and,
Yes.
New Year's Eve 2014, I made it my New Year's resolution. I was going to sit down and write this book, and I was going to force myself.
Yeah.
I forced myself for months to write an hour a day. And then at some
Yep.
point in time around July and August of 14, I hit what
Mhm.
I can't even refer to as anything other than just a trance, where I
Yes.
bled over 300 pages in 2 weeks, and the bulk of the book was written then. When I
Yeah.
snapped out of it, St. Louis was burning because Michael Brown had just been killed and Robert Williams had just
Um,
committed suicide. I was absolutely heartbroken.
um,
He was my fictional first dude, Robin Williams.
yes.
I
Yes.
I I have the belief that the first dude is actually more important than the first female president. I think that, he's got to be a man's man. He's got to be a duty dude, a straight stud, a smart, thoughtful, understanding dude. And he's got to be the kind of dude that other dudes can relate to. And as
Yeah.
much as, and we saw it in 16 with Bill Clinton, people don't trust him.
Yeah.
It's a real
Yeah.
problem, you know, and
Yeah.
And so I took the angle that the first dude was just as important as the first female president. And,
Yes.
the first female president is going to be important whoever she is, right?
Yes.
But before Trump, I believed that the president's role was incredibly limited on what they could do. But that has changed in the last couple of years. And my opinion
I'll
about
bet.
how important the first dude is has changed in the last couple of years
Yes.
too. And it is
Yeah.
entirely possible that there's not a man out there capable to the challenge. And what this nation really needs is a single woman who's not putting up with anything else.
Yes.
I mean, it's entirely possible.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Why
Who
not?
knows?
Like,
Who knows?
why not?
Right.
Why
Why
not?
not a single woman who doesn't need a man, but doesn't
Mm.
disrespect men, right? Men are
Yeah,
incredibly valuable and incredibly important, but
absolutely.
maybe it's just not possible to find a first dude.
Ah, good
Maybe.
point. Good point, Sharmin.
It's a hard job to fill. We've had dozens of
Yeah.
first ladies to give other first ladies
Yes.
an example of how they're supposed to behave, but
But no,
no first man, and you got to find a
that's right.
man who can make other men man up, and he's got to be the kind of
Yes.
man that other men can respect, and that's a
Yes.
tough
Tough
bill
ask.
when you look at the way
Yeah.
men treat each other. We
Yes.
constantly hear about the inappropriate behaviors of men, and men cheer each other on, and women complain
Yes.
about how they don't feel safe anywhere, not walking, not
Yes.
driving, not sleeping in their
Correct.
own beds. We're not safe anywhere. You can't have
Yeah.
you can't have a professional work relationship with another man without there being some sort of inappropriate
Some sort of,
accusation. Right? It is
that's right. That's
incredibly
right.
frustrated, and we bring it up all the time, and the men turn their back on us and scream, "Not all men." And we're struck
Yeah.
trying to figure out which ones are good and which ones are
Yeah.
bad. We can't tell the difference because they pretend to be they know how to act right when they want your
Yeah.
attention, right? But as
Yes.
soon as you
They do.
reject them, they become angry, they become violent, they
Agree.
become hostile. The idea that if I can't have you, nobody else can have you has been around a
Yes.
long time. Women
Centuries.
have been
Centuries.
women die rejecting men and leaving men every day.
Yes.
And
They do.
until the men do something about the men,
Yes.
I, I don't
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
know how to fix it.
I think I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's a huge women's movement happening in Australia at the moment in calling out rape culture, women not feeling safety, calling out bad behaviour. And the constant cry is not all men. We know that it's not all men, but you guys sprouting the not all men, you need to step up and call out the behaviour as well, because that's the only way we will see change. In Australia, there's a lot of angry, upset women because there's just such prolifically bad behaviour in the highest offices of the land and across lots of corporations and businesses. And we're at the point where it's just, this is not okay anymore. And this is not about man bashing. This is simply about calling out behavior that is no longer acceptable. We won't accept it anymore for our granddaughters or even our grandsons. And I have a grandson, and I'm damn sure he's not going to grow up with some of the attitudes that I've been subject to my entire life. And you would know the same, Charmin. It's no different to what has happened and is happening in America. But for the behavior to stop, we need other men to call out other men's bad behavior. We can highlight it, we can be angry, and we can activate, but I think it's still got to come from men. And they've got to really start to understand what it's like to be a woman in this world. And you don't feel safe. If you've got to walk to your car at night, you don't feel safe. If you've got to walk down a dark lane, men do not have that, do they?
No, they don't. They don't have that at all. They and it is so frustrating that we've been having this conversation for decades. This conversation's been taking place as long
Absolutely.
as I've been alive. My mother, my
Yes.
grandmothers complained about it. And
Yes.
now with the Me Too movement, so many men are
Mm.
frustrated. They're insisting that they don't know what's right and they don't know what's wrong. And this is another example of weaponizing competency. One of the ways
Yes.
men have functioned for decades, and it's been a funny joke in their marriages. Anytime your wife asks you to do something, go screw it up. She won't ever ask you for help again.
Yes.
So here we
Yes.
are begging for their help to stop rape, to stop the sexual assault, to stop the sexual harassment at work, and they don't know how to act.
Correct.
They don't know what's right. They don't know what's wrong. It's
But they
incredible.
do.
They do know what's right. They know how to act right when they want to date us, when they want something from us. But as soon as they don't think they can get what they want, and they all want the same thing,
Mhm. Yeah.
they become angry and they become hostile and they become threatening and they become dangerous. Do whatever they can do to ruin your reputation, right? They accuse
Yes.
you of doing
Yes.
things that you
Yes.
haven't been doing. They slut shame you the first chance they get,
Yes.
because obviously that's all
Yes.
you were in the first place. They call you a
Yeah.
gold digger. They created our
Yes.
financial system, and then they are angry at the way it is, right? They've created
Yes.
everything, all of the things that we do, our tax system, our income system, the way we live, the way we work,
Mm.
all this has been created by men, and they don't like the way it works either. But it's so big and it's so complicated that nobody really has a clue how to fix it. And then some crazy woman comes along, because all women are crazy, and she's got these ideas
Yes.
and nobody wants to listen. And
Mm.
it's frustrating, and
It is.
if we get too loud, then we're shrill and they can't hear us anymore. Their
Yes.
brains lock
Yes.
down, and
Mm.
the dynamic, the battle of the sexes, the male female hostility has been going on so long. It is
Yes.
just absolutely exhausting. Just because I call
Yes.
out inappropriate man behavior doesn't mean I'm a man hater. I love men. I
Absolutely.
adore men. I
And
love it
that's
when they
it.
behave appropriately and they're protective and they're defensive and they're respectful. And those are the behaviors I admire and I respect, and I want to see more of it.
Yes.
And I want those
Yes.
men stepping up and helping the other men, because there are plenty of guys
Understand.
who see the behavior as being inappropriate. And when those guys call out the other guys, that's what excites me. Like, those guys are my heroes.
Absolutely.
I appreciate them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing, Shaman. It's not about either or. It's about having more balance. And there hasn't been that balance. There hasn't been female conversation at the table in those higher echelons of power. They've been devoid of feminine influence and feminine understanding. And that's the balance that it's missing. When you bring the balance back in, you get better solutions for humanity. And for women, we just need to be part of the conversation. It's not about them or us, it's about the balance of male and female. That's what will get the solution to solve many of humanity's struggles and pain points that we're going through at the moment. Um, Jarman, the book's called Taming the Teeter, and it's a wonderful title. And I just wonder how you came up with the title.
So it's taming the titta. Titta is a Hawaiian
Teeter,
word.
sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. It's a Hawaiian word for an aggressive female personality who will fight you. And Shakespeare proved that he could tame a shrew, but I'd like to think that you don't tame a titta tames you. It's not exactly a
Oh,
compliment, right? Titta is
no.
right. You're angry. You're being aggressive, but it
Yes.
is also
Yes.
a compliment for proud, strong, independent women who
Yes.
don't
Yes.
mind stepping up to a challenge, right? And I see this
Yeah.
personality, it's a Hawaiian word, but this is a
Yeah.
personality.
It's
And
great.
it exists in every woman I have ever met all across the planet, regardless of race, regardless of religion, regardless of anything else that divides us. This angry woman, I'm not putting up with that anymore, is
Yeah.
everywhere. And I want to encourage women to let their tittas loose. It is when we speak
Yes.
up, is when we use our voice. It is when we work towards the things that we are the most passionate about, that we have the
Yes.
opportunity to affect real change.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I said to you, that the title of your book is an apt description of the way women across Australia are feeling at the moment. We have had enough. And
Mhm.
there's some amazingly beautiful, powerful women speaking up and telling anyone that will listen, this cannot be the same going forward. Things have to change. I want to change. I want to change tact a little bit, and I just before we run out of time, I really want to tap into your campaign for the presidency in 2018. I hope I've got that date correct, and how the QAnon connection arose from your campaign back then.
So I launched a campaign for president in June 2018, and the company that I hired to do my
Yeah.
marketing for me ended up being heavily connected to QAnon. And I believe
Um,
some of my knowledge and information got sucked into the machine and spewed out all over the planet. The woman that I hired as my campaign manager, I believe her now to be opposition research. She quickly set about just absolutely destroying my life. Um,
oh,
so many of the weird events that have taken place over the last 2 years, I have a
yes,
personal connection to, make sense to me for reasons that make sense to nobody else. I
yes,
have been mind blown with
yeah,
the how dark politics are. We
yes,
we know politics is a dirty game. I knew politics was a dirty
yes,
game, but I
yes,
really thought because I didn't have any scandals, I was safe.
yes.
Because I have wanted to get into politics um, since Walter Mondale picked Geraldine Ferraro to be his vice president in 1984. I have lived a very
Yeah,
careful life because I did not ever
yes,
want a scandal.
yes,
I lived a very careful life. I've missed out on a lot of fun, but I
yes,
did it with a purpose and a belief that it was something that was bigger than me. And so
yes,
when scandal after scandal and these horrible accusations just started popping up, I didn't know how to manage it. And
yeah,
it I think it is important for people to remember that politicians falsely accuse other politicians of things they
yes,
know aren't happening just to draw attention and just to create drama against each other. And I have never seen it as bad as I saw it in 2000, from 2018, 2019 with this QAnon chaos. These false
yes,
accusations about everything under the sun and the way they have managed to trick people with these videos with
yes. Oh no, Sharman, we've lost your voice again, darling.
one of the things that's most important to me for people who have been watching the QAnon videos is to make sure that they know as you watch them, it is important to pay attention to the fact that there are layered subliminal messages. There's flashing lights, there's words. And anytime you catch one, for the one you catch, there are 100 you missed. And it is important for you to
No.
pay attention to the moment that you feel rage. Those they're layered into these videos with the specific purpose of creating a synapse within your brain that causes you to become angry and enraged. And they have done this on purpose. The storyline that they have created from the devil worshiping and going after the pedophiles. I fully support going after the pedophiles. I wrote a book
Yes,
about giving the death penalty to pedophiles. I fully support
yes,
it in an appropriate legal manner, right? We need to revoke the statute of limitations on all sex related crimes, and we need to stop victim
Yes.
blaming and victim
Yes.
shaming, and we need to
Yes.
start
Yes.
believing people as they come forward. And now we have to do an investigation on every claim, not just pick and choose which rape accusations we're going to investigate. And we absolutely have to
Absolutely.
prosecute the false accusers. Anybody who is running around false accusing anyone of rape, I
It's not
never
okay.
well, and I have found myself in a very strange way landing on the guy's side of Me Too, because I have had somebody falsely accuse me of rape. I have had somebody
Yes.
falsely accuse me of coordinating things for the benefit of somebody else. I have been in
Yes.
this. I never in a million years thought that I would personally experience this, but one of the things I
Yes.
wrote about in my book was the importance of prosecuting the false accusers, and that is what I am here for
Definitely.
at this point in time. No one should be allowed to walk around and just accuse somebody else of being a pedophile or being a rapist
Absolutely.
without being able to back it up. You know, the idea that
Definitely.
they what oh my goodness, what they did to poor Chrissy
Yes.
Teigen. What they that
Yes.
when they unleashed that craziness on her, nobody knew she was pregnant, and the stress when she
Mm.
miscarried, it just broke my heart. There they
Yeah.
and one of the things that I realized very quickly on about the accusations that were coming from QAnon, while these parties are being
Yes.
thrown by the elites and everybody who is wealthy and elite is participating in them, they were only outing Democrats. That was my first cue that this was a political
Oh,
ploy made specifically by Republicans to ruin the reputation of Democrats and try to ruin the election against Democrats. This was all
I
a
see.
very vicious game. And I know that there is inappropriate behavior going on at um, some parties, for sure. Super Bowl parties. I'd love to have a conversation
Yes.
about Super Bowl parties, especially the ones in
Oh,
Minneapolis.
yes.
I'm paying attention to this Chauvin trial for a very different reason than
Yes.
most people are.
Yes.
My campaign
Yeah.
took a significant detour through the Minneapolis Police Department, where I brought
Yes.
them a victim and tried to address the issue with them. Um, I ended up the subject matter of an investigation. I ended up the subject of a FISA warrant. I have never been able to get confirmation that the investigation against me has been closed. And when the police
Oh,
department in Minneapolis burned down last year, I took notice, right? As a spiritual person, as somebody
yes.
who manages to know things they don't have any reason to
Yes.
be able to know, somebody who has made more than one person nervous about it. When all of this
Yes.
happened to me, I as a Christian, I fully believed that if God brought me to it, God will bring me through it. I know my trials will
Yes.
be my testimony. I believe God will
Yes.
put you through hell just to give you a story to tell. And I have a
Yeah.
really good one. And whatever took place with me in Minneapolis changed my life, altered my
Yes.
relationship with my kids. Um,
Yes.
I want justice for so many reasons, right?
Yes.
I am looking forward to seeing the changes that are going to come through this new Citizens Council that is taking over investigations from that police department. I look forward to
Ah,
changes coming in the future. I am anxiously watching to see how this trial goes down and what
yes.
happens, because I believe that this is the key to opening up a really big can of worms.
Um, okay.
I, I
So,
have a I have a very unique story.
yes, 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 absolutely. In being on the outside, i.e., in Australia, looking on at some of the QAnon information and stuff, it seems to me, and many other people that I talk to, that QAnon has seemingly what would have been seen as an extreme outside group. It seems to have really infiltrated mainstream lives, conversations, and media. That's a bit frightening, isn't it?
It's through these videos. It's through these videos layered with subliminal messages, with information that is right? Layered with flashing lights. They're designed
Mm.
to make people, they're designed to be, to hypnotize you and to draw you in.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times I've watched people watch these videos, and I've watched their face
Yes.
glaze over, right? They get sucked
Yes.
so far in, they can't come out, and they believe
Mm.
everything that they see. And critical thinking is so important, right? That for me, the
Yes.
reality to put together that they were only exposing Democrats was like, yeah, okay, all right, yeah. All the people are
Yeah.
going to these big fancy parties, but we're only going to out the Democrats. Got it. It
Yes.
is critical thinking. You have to be willing to ask questions, and you have to be willing to
Yes.
ask yourself questions, and you have to really be willing to question whether or not somebody is deliberately trying to deceive you. Oh, Tom Hanks, come on.
Yes.
Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
And
So
so many celebrities got caught up in this, right? And
yes.
I this was nasty. This was vicious.
And that's
This
that
was
critical
deliberate.
thinking, isn't it, Charmin? That's that
Mhm.
critical thinking that people, um, you need to be able to stand back and critically analyze the information that you're getting. Is this real? Is this right? Is this reasonable? And if it's not, then start to question, like, i- how could that be true? So, if you go back to the start of the pandemic, when people like saying, "Oh, this is a hoax," well, have a look back. Have a look at the numbers of people. Even if you disregard half of those numbers, it's still a big issue. It cannot be a hoax. You can't you can't call something a hoax if it involves the entire world and the entire world's population and the entire world's governments, because there's no way you would get all of those governments to agree that this is the hoax that they're going to perpetuate to humanity. That's just not possible. So if you were thinking, oh, this is a hoax, and you use critical thinking and went, oh, okay, so Russia's even dealing with this. Um, Africa's dealing with this. Europe's dealing with this. UK, Australia, America. They can't agree enough. There's no way those governments or those peoples would all agree and present a hoax of that level. So that's critical thinking, isn't it, Shaman?
It is, and that actually came in handy here in the United States. There
Yeah.
was some 5G chaos that the virus was
Yes.
caused by 5G,
Yes.
but
Yes.
fortunately, people in Africa were willing to say, "Hey, we don't have 5G and we still have the virus." So, right, we need to be having
Critical
these
thinking.
conversations, right? Everybody's having them, and it was so disappointing for me to watch Trump tell
Oh,
people that this wasn't real, it was a hoax, it was made up, it was more QAnon chaos,
yes.
lies, just to deceive people, just to trick people, just to divide people, just to get people angry. When the Woodward tapes came out, and it was proved that when
Mm,
I heard it out of his own mouth in February,
yeah.
how dangerous
Yes.
this virus was, and he didn't do anything to even protect his own people.
I know. I know.
Why?
I know. Shannon,
Why?
do you think that that America is over Trump? Do you think that,
No.
like, because I think that he's a huge threat.
Yes.
It seems to me that people that do not have critical thinking, they just follow Trump almost religiously, like a cult. And from the outside looking in, it's very cult-like. And
Mhm.
my concern is that there are still large numbers of Americans blindly following what he says and what he does. Is
Well,
that
because
still the case, do you think?
because somehow he has managed to grab the QAnon, right? He's got people
Yes.
who are brainwashed through these videos, and they believe he's
Yes.
the savior come to protect the children. Now,
Yes.
this man has over 26 verified accusers of
Yes.
sexual assault.
He does.
This
Yes.
man brags about looking at young girls at his pageant. This
Yes.
man
Yes.
brags about how attracted he was to his daughter and how much he wished he would date her.
Yes.
And I feel for
Yes.
Ivanka. My dad thought I was hot too. I think this is the most repulsive example of a man on the planet.
Yes.
And it
I'm with you.
disappoints me that so many people, men and women, see him as a
Yes.
hero. They have fallen for
Yes.
this misbelief that he's going to save the children. He don't care about anybody's children. He don't care about any children.
He
He was
doesn't.
friends with
He
Jeffrey
doesn't.
Epstein. He
Jane.
wished
Yes.
Maxwell good luck. This is not a
That's what
hero.
I mean.
This is
That's
not
that critical thinking that we're
this is
missing.
this isn't
If a
somebody
man wishes,
this isn't somebody you would ask to watch your children. This
no,
isn't
no
somebody
way.
that you would no way. This isn't somebody that you want hanging around your teenage daughter, right? One of the things that's come out
No.
here in the United States in the last 6 months is that if you really care about stopping pedophiles and you really care about stopping sexual predators, stop telling your daughter she's got to change her shorts because her weird uncle's coming over, and stop letting the weird uncle come around, right?
Come over.
The
Yes.
idea that we have to, as women, everything we do is prescribed for our protection. We can't dress a certain way. We can't wear makeup
Yes,
a certain way.
exactly.
We have to wear a bra, but don't let your bra strap show because men won't be able to control themselves. We have to work on this dynamic.
We
This
do.
idea that
We
that
do.
that girls can't learn in school the same way boys can because girls are a distraction to boys. Boys need to learn how to focus. Right?
Exactly.
It is we have our whole society is built around shaming women for existing
Yes.
and allowing
Yes.
men and boys to get away with behavior that would never be
That is
tolerated
unacceptable.
from a girl. When I wrote my book, I popped off at the mouth a lot, right? It was a reality show. I wanted to get attention, but I
Yes.
behaved in a way in writing that I would never behave in public because a woman would
Yes.
never be allowed to act like
No,
that. Right?
that's
Trump
right.
behaves in a way that
It's
no
obnoxious.
no woman could ever even try. Women are accused of being hysterical and irrational all the time. And every woman I know is sitting back watching Trump.
Going, yeah, there's
Now,
some
now we
irrational
know.
behavior.
Now we know what irrational looks like. We've been taught to
Hmm.
manage our moods, control our mouth, know our audience our whole life. And here we have this individual who just can get away with anything because he's got money,
Absolutely.
and men think he's fabulous because
Hmm.
he's doing everything they want to do and can't get away with.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Sharmin, we're down to the last minute of the show, which has gone so quickly. Thank you so
I
much. I
know.
want to know, I want to know what Sharmin, what you have planned for the future. What does the future hold for you?
Well, right now, my focus is book sales and building a
Yes.
platform and trying to figure out how to get my message out and share some
Yes.
love along the way. I've been incredibly fortunate. I've been asked to be a regular on a very fun podcast. I suggest
Yeah.
all your friends go check out Kermit and Friends. It is an
Yes.
absolutely adorable show.
Yeah.
The young lady who has started the podcast off of her love of her dog who died and is in heaven
Yes.
with God. It is I am here for the love of Kermit the dog. It is the greatest thing
Oh,
ever. I don't know if you remember Andy Dick or if you know who Andy Dick is. He's a
yes.
famous comedian here in the United States. He got ordained
Yes.
to be a minister on the show, and he is now Reverend Dick. So I am here for the love of Kermit the dog, blessings from Reverend Dick, and I'm trying to manifest Betty White as the fairy godmother. If you don't know how Betty White fits into the story, you
Well,
absolutely
that would be
buy my book.
fantastic.
I know, I
Oh,
love her so much. She was
I
one of the
know, I
greatest
agree.
experiences in my childhood. I got very fortunate to cross paths with her, and she was
Yeah.
such a it was a really difficult time in my life, and she was
Yes.
so nice and kind to me, and she has just been
Yes.
my
Fairy
goal for
godmother.
kindness. Yes, she's my fairy godmother. I am obviously a lost
Yes.
Disney princess. Look at this hair.
Sharmin Smith, thank you so much for coming on Radio Tony today. It's a real privilege to be able to interview you live on air. I wish you amazing success. Don't forget, listeners, you can jump on and grab Sharmin's book. If the links will be on radiotony.com, the links will also be on BBS Radio /radiotony.com. Don't forget to reach out, connect with Sharmin. She's just an amazing, amazing woman. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much, Sharmin. Thanks, listeners, for coming and listening to us today. This is Radio Tony, your show, Everyday Business. Bye for now, and thank you, Sharmin.
Bye. Thank you.